Let's talk now to the Energy Secretary, Ed Miliband, who joins us now from Sheffield. Ed Miliband, good morning to you, and we'll come on to the announcement that you're due to make a little later today in a moment. I want to start, though, with events at Heathrow, because it is significant disruption caused by that fire at that substation. What do we know right now about the chances of getting the airport reopened?
Well, look, Ben, let me start by saying my heart goes out to that lady who you spoke to, trying to get to her father's funeral, and all of the people who've had their travel disrupted by what's happened at Heathrow. We've had a catastrophic fire at an electricity substation, as you've been reporting, which not only meant that Heathrow lost power, but also affected the potential backup generation as well. What I know, having spoken to the National Grid this morning, is obviously the fire brigade is on the scene trying to put out the fire, but also the grid is doing everything they can to restore power as quickly as they can to Heathrow. Heathrow is saying that the airport will be closed today until midnight, as you know, but the grid are doing everything they can to seek to restore power. My understanding from Grid is that 100,000 homes were without power as a result of this fire overnight. The figure they gave to me a short time ago was that that's down now to 4,000. But obviously this is a fast-moving situation, and we will be doing everything we can to work with Grid on the work they're doing to restore power.
What does it tell us about the vulnerability of critical infrastructure to disruption like this? That, yes, it's a significant fire. We can see that from the images that we've been showing this morning. But that the busiest transport hub in Europe is able to be closed entirely by a fire or some disruption at an electrical substation. Why is it so vulnerable?
Look, I think it's too early to answer that question. We don't know the cause of this fire. It's obviously an unprecedented event, but I think what you're right to say is we will want to understand both the causes of this event and what lessons, if any, it can teach us. As I say, the grid have never seen an event quite like this, so it is very unprecedented, but obviously this is a massive disruption for people at Heathrow, and obviously with any kind of event like this we will want to learn the appropriate lessons. The priority at the moment obviously is to get the fire out and to restore power, and then to obviously work with the airport in kind of unwinding the terrible disruption that has been caused to lots and lots of passengers.
Yes, we will keep a close eye on that, and it's good to talk to you about that first of all. Let's move, though, on to that announcement you're making today that hundreds of schools and hospitals in England are going to get solar panels on their roof. It'll cost about £200 million to do so. There's 200 schools, 200 NHS sites in England. How's this going to work?
So basically, so many schools and hospitals have faced sky-high energy bills and continue to face sky-high energy bills. And there is an answer, which is cheap, homegrown solar power. And that's why Great British Energy, our new publicly owned energy company, is going to be partnering with the NHS, partnering with the Department for Education, to put solar panels on 200 schools, 200 hospitals. This is just a start of what we want to do. It will save tens of thousands of pounds for each of those institutions, money that will no longer be spent paying energy companies, frankly, but will be diverted to frontline services. So this shows what clean, renewable power can do for our country, can do for our public services.
So let me just be clear. You as government will pay the £200 million cost of installing these solar panels on schools and hospitals, and then the school or the hospital will see the benefit. They'll save the money or they'll see cheaper bills. How much will a typical school save?
So a typical school will save something like £25,000 and a typical hospital something like £45,000 on our calculations. I spoke to a head teacher last night. We're visiting an academy here in Sheffield. He has solar panels on his roof at the moment, and most schools don't. He says it's saved him something like £40,000, as he put it to me, about the salary of a special needs teacher. That's just one illustration of the difference this can make. And it's frankly a no-brainer, this, because we've got this cheap, abundant source of power, which is solar power. Most schools don't have solar panels. Most hospitals don't either. This is going to be a 300% increase in the number of hospitals with solar panels. It's a really important investment that Great British Energy is making.
Really briefly, you use those numbers, £25,000, £40,000. How quickly? When do they get that money back? Because it takes a long time to recoup a cost of a solar installation.
Well, that's true, but as you pointed out in your question, it's the Great British Energy that's actually paying for the upfront investment. So these panels will start going on early in this financial year. So by, for example, the start of the new academic year in September, schools will see a reduction in their energy bills. That's the great thing about this.
Okay.
This is going to have an immediate effect on schools. Those schools that are getting the solar panels will see their bills fall, be able to use that money for frontline services, helping pupils.
A lot of people watching this morning will say, yeah, sounds great in theory, a chance to maybe save a little bit of cash. But they know that schools have broken toilets. They know schools have leaking roofs. They know that schools don't have enough teachers. Is this the right priority? Surely we should be fixing that stuff first. Literally fix the roof before you put the solar panel on top of it.
Well, we are doing that too. And actually, in the budget last year, the Chancellor made significant investments in school buildings as well as in the day-to-day running costs of education. You know, she made decisions on tax, some of which people didn't like, but that helped to fund investment in our schools. And we know that there's a huge amount we've got to do to address the backlog, frankly, in school repairs. It's going to take time to turn it round, but the great thing about this scheme is it's a way of giving immediate day-to-day relief in the running costs for schools. It's an investment you can make to reduce their running costs. So you're absolutely right, Ben. There is also the investment that we've got to make over the long term in our school building stock. Somebody who went to school a long time ago in a very old school building, I know it can make a massive difference to upgrade those buildings, and that is also what the government is working on.
There'll be a question about funding too as well, that we know the government is keen. It got rid of NHS England. It says a QUANGO is 2 arms length. It's taking funding and it's not directing money to frontline services. What you're doing with GB Energy is creating another one, isn't it? You're creating a QUANGO that will... judging by the latest figures, the boss will have a salary of £525,000 a year. That's a lot of solar panels you could install for that, isn't it?
I don't see it as a QUANGO. This is going to be a commercial energy company, albeit one publicly owned. And, you know, here's the interesting thing. So many other countries in Europe have their own publicly owned energy companies doing things like what GB Energy is doing. And the thing I thought when Labour was in opposition is, well, why not us? Why shouldn't Britain be investing? This is just the first investment Great British Energy is going to be making. So one of the other investments it's looking at is investing in so-called floating offshore wind, a new technology that can make a real difference. Now, that's going to be good for jobs and employment, good for generating clean power, but also it will have a return to the taxpayer. And that's the key thing here. This is about long-term investments that either have a return for public services, in the case of the solar panels, or return for the taxpayer in relation to the commercial investments that are going to be made. And at the moment, we've got a situation where other countries have publicly owned energy companies investing in Britain, in British renewables, and the money's actually flowing out to them, profits for their taxpayers. We say, why not us?
Ed Miliband, good to talk to you. Thank you, Energy Secretary, joining us there live from Sheffield. Good to have you on the programme.
And we will have updates throughout the morning from Heathrow.